to Munich, Noah Baumbach. Your mother was a film critic.
Yeah.
Is she criticizing your films?
Well, mothers, you know mothers. Well, I didn't. They were both. They were both film critics at different points, or did film criticism. But they both were also creative writers. So my father was a novelist and short story writer and a teacher, and my mother wrote fiction. So I didn't. It wasn't like I grew up in. It didn't feel like a home of critics and the most, but they were movie lovers, and so I saw lots of movies growing up, and was, many things I wasn't, prepared for, both just from, seeing things that were either more sophisticated or just had, more violence and sex than I was ready for. But I was around movies, just seeing movies, but we didn't know anybody who made movies. We just, but I just, I think it got inside me, just watching all these movies.
So you saw them on VHS or on television, or in a theater?
Well, in the theater until, I was, I guess I was probably like 12 or something when VHS started coming, and I convinced them. I actually paid for our first VHS with like saved birthday money, which was one of those top loaders, and then I actually cut a movie that I shot on, high 8 video on 2 VCRs when I was a teenager. It has that rainbow running through it for all the cuts, yeah, so it VHS later, but then it was like revival houses and just, whatever new movies were coming out.
Right. So when did it become clear for you that movies is what you would like to do for a living?
Pretty early. I think, before I bought that VCR for us. But it was sort of a split thing, because I knew it's something I sort of found myself thinking in terms of movies. I would talk about like what the movie of what we were doing might be, or kind of stories or books or things. I would kind of talk about how I would cast them and things. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't know anybody who made movies or anything. So I wasn't. It seemed like something that only other people did. I really had no practical sense of what that meant. I think now there's so much more information, or at least it seems like there is. You can read about and watch video making of kind of stuff and people, and you can just pick up a camera and shoot. I didn't. It wasn't until, until I guess VCRs and things, I started shooting on video cameras. But it didn't. It seemed both possible and not possible at the same time.
And you already mentioned the importance of having good collaborators, which is something which you had from the beginning, I think. How did you come about finding those people who you worked with on a regular basis, and also this group of friends?
Well, yeah, I had some terrific collaborators on my first movies, but I also had to I think I figured out probably over the process of my first 2 movies particularly, I figured out how it was I did it, because, I was sort of, in a way I felt like I inherited a process, because, they say, well, this is how you do it, and, this is how, you have the editor make an assembly, then you come, while you're shooting, you meet with the editor, they show you how terrible your movie is, then you have a nervous breakdown, then you try and improve it, and it took me into the second movie. I was like, why am I doing it like this? I don't like this at all. So I don't let the editor make an assembly. I go and I assemble it with the editor. And there are many versions or examples of that where, you figure out who you are as a filmmaker, and good collaborators are, kind of go there with you, and then also help you learn, introduce other ways and things that can be exciting, But in the beginning, I think I was very, maybe about 65% I was like, I'm doing it this way, and then the other 35% I was sort of like, I guess I'll just do it this way. And if I could do it again, I wouldn't do it that way. But that's, the process of learning.
And how did you meet people like Wes Anderson, for example,
well, who
is a good friend of yours?
Yeah, and Wes Bottle Rocket came out the same year as Kicking and Screaming, and it was the sort of thing I think we kind of would hear about each other. I think both movies, at the time weren't particularly, they got nice reviews but didn't do any business, and so, we were often sort of referred to as sort of like the, there's another movie nobody saw that you might be, and so I think it was, Wes was in New York, maybe around Rushmore or something, and we met finally, and we also both had become friends with Peter Bogdanovich and become, and he had sort of spoken to each of us about the other. So then we, from that point forward, we stayed friends. I think we sort of recognize something the way you do when you meet a new friend. You kind of, there's something familiar. Mike Nichols used to say, oh, there's another one. And we both, I remember when we met, it was at a John Waters premiere, and we ended up actually not at the party. We both ended up at this bar, and we produced at the same time the same little notebook that was the same brand, which they discontinued. I think Wes has figured out a way to get them made somewhere. And so, I think it's just, we kind of, I guess in a general sense, love the same things about movies and love the same kinds of movies, and, our early conversations were like, oh, have you seen, oh, but you should see, and, those kind of, the things you do with, and so, but, it's nice. It's exciting to see, when, we show each other our scripts when, we're, right now, actually, I just read his new thing and showed him mine, and, and it's nice to have, known someone this long now and actually be kind of like no longer the newcomers, and have a kind of collaborative relationship even if we're not collaborating.
Squid and the Whale is very autobiographical, I think. That's what I read.
They say
for you
that.
To tell us.
They tell me that, yeah. It's extremely personal. The autobiography of it is, there are things you can find from my life if you care to, but they're not, it isn't, the story is totally fabricated, and, but, it's very personal. But I feel like all my movies are. I don't feel particularly that movie is more autobiographical or less so than any of my other films. It's just, the surface of it was, it was Brooklyn, it was kids, it was divorce, things that had happened to me.
Do you think that's also something that connects you with Truffaut, because Les 400 coups, The 400 Blows, is very autobiographical, even more than people thought at the time, and it was only later that we knew how autobiographical it was, and even a film like The Man Who Loved Women is extremely autobiographical. So do you think that's also something where you connect with Truffaut and his way to make his own life into movies, and maybe his famous question, what's more important, life or cinema? Definitely.
I mean, even to the ones that you don't know. I mean, you don't know. I don't. Soft skin, or you kind of imagine, oh, maybe this probably happened to him. But it is the sort of personality of them that is so appealing, and the warmth and in many cases kind of, strange and disturbing behavior that comes across with such compassion, and even sort of I was saying about Jules and Jim, it's also the personal in the craft and his love of movies is evidenced in the way he films the movies, even, the way he cuts them. I mean, they're like so. I mean, I thought about this with Frances Ha, which was my movie before. I mean, it's like, which was, has in some cases more sort of deliberate references to his movies that,
including the music.
Yeah, and the music totally, and that that you feel everything about the movie feels like him, whoever he is, and. Yeah, I think the fact that he wasn't afraid to play with his autobiography. I mean, I suppose I'm in that same kind of tradition.
More questions from the audience? Yes.
How do you stay so calm? Because it sounds strenuous. I've never tried a movie, but you seem so relaxed. Although you are working hard all the time, and you have to be. I mean, you have to be perfectionist to make it really come out good in the end. I haven't known you for now. I haven't seen a movie by you, but I'm glad I know you now. I'm going to watch movies now, so I can't really relate to movies.
Well, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm heavily sedated, by the way. Well, part of when you're making a movie too, or on stage for that matter, you have to, you have other people getting their cues from you. So, for me anyway, I want to, let everybody know it's all right, even if I'm freaking out, So, other directors obviously have different, you hear anyway, have different ways of doing it, It's like, you think about like sports figures, they're, someone, like John McEnroe, tennis player, like, having a fit somehow motivated him to be better, and it worked for him, and intimidated his opponent, and did, and, if that worked for me, I'd probably do that too. But, I like to make a movie the way I like to be in the world, which is I like to be with people I like and respect, and for everybody to be focused and working, but have, that it's fun ultimately. I mean, it's stressful, yeah. I mean, it's crazy in a way, movie making, and that I don't think there's any art form like it where you're like, we have to record all of this. We have this amount of time to get this right, and nobody's going to give you a pass because you had 20 days or 50 days or 100 days. Nobody judges a movie based on the amount of days. It'd be nice if they said before a movie, this was only shot in, and this is a longer thing, but it's sort of, a digression, but it sort of was the idea behind when I made Frances Ha and then Mistress America, was that if you could almost break a movie set down to the least amount of people possible, it's sort of based on that idea, if you go all the way into the ground, you're going to hit China, like that you go the other direction, that maybe we would have even more freedom in a certain way. We could go longer. And those movies had, and I could do 50 takes, and I shot Frances in 50-something days, and Mistress America, I think, was 60. While we're young, because it was a more traditional shoot. I think it was 45, which is still, for these movies, a lot of time, but it's never enough time. And when I'm hospitalized for an ulcer, you'll know that it was, the calm was fake.
Please.
This might just be a yes or no question, so I'll hold one reserve in case it's a dud. But I actually had the occasion to teach Frances Ha in a survey of German cinema. I can explain later how that works. But, and students drew a lot of connections to Alexander Kluge's, it's called Abschied von Gestern, I think in English it's called Yesterday Girl.
Uh-huh.
And so considering the influence of Truffaut, the French Nouvelle Vague, I was wondering if that was also an influence.
No, I haven't even heard of that movie. But now I'm interested, yeah. I should have taken your class. Yeah.
If I could then ask a different question.
That was the no. That was
no.
It was a dud. It was a dud. Yeah.
Now
No.
hard
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
And that's how you distinguish. I just came from seeing While We're Young, which I and if authenticity is important to you.
Well, I think for me it's a kind of, maybe it's, I would distinguish between, you know, I maybe psychological and emotional authenticity in what I'm trying to do, that the behavior feels honest and not necessarily has to be even, you know, literally like human behavior. It's still acting, it's still movie, it's still heightened, it's you know, they're jokes, they're, you know, it's not real life, and you know, I think I write in a way that tends to sort of maybe feel like an approximation of how people might talk, but it's not at all how people talk. And so, but I am looking to try to find, you know, to not cheat if I can help it. You know, of course I cheat all the time, but you know, in terms of, you know, you're making a movie, you're constructing it, you have to fake it. But I do think, you know, I want to try to be as true to that as I can, that this would be something, this is the, you know, the person who did this, the psychology of the person is also true when they do this. And, you know, that's important.
Yes, please.
What's the brand of notebooks how does your notebook keeping related? Especially now that they've gone out of prison.
I know, yeah, there's the movies, you know, post-notebook and pre-notebook. Well, I've got other notebooks, and I even sometimes take notes on the phone, you know, which is sad. There were these little brown notebooks with black, it had black like trim on the thing, but I've seen other ones like it. They were exactly the right size. I don't know the actual dimensions, but they were the right size. It wasn't too small so you weren't writing anything, but it wasn't too big. It wasn't, and they were soft. They had like a, and I think it was, I don't know how you say it, Stedven or something, Staedven or something, I think was the brand, or I might be spelling it wrong, but someone have it?
Yes, please.